what America was and what it can become. This is Liberty Town Hall.
Welcome to Liberty Town Hall. I'm Greg Marshall. Glenn Wilson is here as well. And Glenn, big interview. You're going to be talking with Don Gould today. I had him on my radio program at patriotvoice.us, but you got a chance to talk to him, and we'll be looking into your interview with him today on Liberty Town Hall.
Greg, it's amazing how many people want to pull the shutters over their eyes, just ignore that these things happen. I think one of the things is what do we bring into our education with a preconceived idea of what we think that other side's thinking or what we think that other team's thinking. So who knows what their goals are? That's what we're going to get in. We're going to look at what the goals really are.
Well, Don Gould is somebody who really is tight with the knowledge base here. I mean, he has been deeply studying Islamic issues. That's what we're going to be talking about today, as he refers to Global Jihad. He's not kidding. I mean, and they're not kidding. The other side isn't. I'm sorry, the leadership of the jihad movement are serious.
This is serious. This is serious. And regardless if I don't like you and I'm willing to ignore you and just stay out of your way and just go about my business, then it's amazing how you don't have to do that. Just because I want to leave you alone doesn't mean you have to leave me alone kind of mentality.
Correct.
And so as long as we pull that shutter over our eyes and pretend that person isn't out to kill us, then we feel all warm and safe. But if they're really figuring out how they can do that, then we really should worry. See what I'm saying? And
I've always said, Glenn, that you need to pay attention to what somebody tells you, because most of the time, if someone tells you they're wanting to do something, a lot of times even if they say, oh, I'm just kidding, later, they like usually have an interest in doing it.
Ahmadinejad says very clearly, I want to wipe Israel off the map. Yet we sit here and say, oh, he's not that bad of a guy. He wouldn't really, do that to nuke Israel. Well, yeah, he would.
He has said so. There's more to talk about when we return. Thanks for being here today. This is Liberty Town Hall.
And welcome back to Liberty Town Hall. We're joined today by Skype with Don Gould. And Don has a book called 9/11 to Global Jihad. Welcome, Don.
Thanks, Glenn. Glad to be here.
Very interesting title you got there, 9/11 to Global Jihad. What's a jihad?
Jihad, in our terminology, Glenn, is holy war. What we're talking about is what radical Islam intends to do. They believe that Allah is telling them to wage holy war against any non-Islamic entity in this world. They totally believe that
anyone that's non-Islamic, it's supposed to be a war against them no matter what. So if they just don't believe in Allah, then they're to go to war with us just for not believing in Allah. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically what people need to understand, Glenn, is that Islam is not a religion as we construe religions in the Western world, okay? It is a total way of life. These guys, basically it's a way of life that is based on the standards of the barbaric 7th century. Based on the standards that existed on the Arabian Peninsula in the 7th century. And it has not changed significantly since then. Other religions and civilizations and so forth have evolved and have moved forward, as time moved forward.
Yeah.
The rules within Islam have not changed. Now, the radicals and the moderates have somewhat a different view, okay? But every one of those guys are taught from childhood that Islam is destined to rule the world. They believe that's going to happen. The radicals intend to make it happen in their lifetime. The moderates think it's going to happen, but not necessarily in their lifetime. That's really what it boils down to. I've lived in Islamic countries for many, many years. I worked and lived overseas for over 15 years, everywhere from the Middle East to Southeast Asia. And, I've run into all kinds, but there's
you've traveled the Islamic countries around the world. Is there a distinct difference between Islam belief overseas versus here? Like, for example, Dearborn, Michigan has a lot of Muslim population. Is there a difference? Is there? We had a show once where we were talking about, you know, is there two different types of interpretations of the Quran where you have a pacifist Muslim and a very activist one? I mean, what's the difference, and how do we know?
There is a difference. They have different sects and they have different beliefs, but the bottom line is they all believe that Islam is destined to rule the world, Glenn. That's what they believe. Now they have different ways of interpreting how that's going to happen. What the people, the Muslims in the Western world in general, have an attitude that basically is, we're going to overcome Western civilization by expanding our rule of law. We're going to implement Sharia law.
Sharia law.
Exactly. Yeah. Sharia law. That's exactly what they're going to.
They honestly believe that Sharia law is going to be implemented here in the United States?
They believe that it will happen as they gain strength, as they gain greater population. If you look at Europe as an example, there are countries, numbers of countries in Europe, number of places in Europe where Sharia law is actually in place and is actually working. If you look at France as an example, there are communities in France, there's suburbs in Paris, where the police will not go unless they go in major force. And that's because the Islamics rule and Sharia law is the law.
Well,
what they believe, Glenn, is that Sharia law is God-given law. They believe that any other law is man-made and they have no respect for it.
So things like honor killing are totally valid as far as they're concerned.
Exactly.
And that's actually being implemented into democracy-ruled laws, right? Where people actually.
Here's a good example, Glenn. Democracy and human rights under Sharia law means something totally different. See, this is our problem. This is where our government believes we can sit down across the table from these guys and we can talk about democracy and human rights, and we're talking about the same thing. We are not talking about the same thing. Democracy and human rights under Islam is defined within the context of Sharia law. Under Sharia law, a woman is a second-class citizen. She will always be a second-class citizen. A non-Muslim is a second-class citizen. You do not have the same rights as Muslims have. In a situation where there's some instances within Sharia law where compensation is used to pay for crimes or to pay for offense or whatever, the non-Muslim is worth a lot less than a Muslim man. The Muslim woman is worth a lot less than a Muslim man in the context of their law.
So a Muslim man ranks at the top and everything else is what? Second-class citizen, period? Is that it?
Yes, sir. You're not. Give you a good example.
I'd like to see my granddaughters be called second-class citizens. I'm sure they got something to say about that. So why should we be concerned here so much?
We should be concerned because they have a plan to basically infiltrate and undermine our institutions of government, and to essentially, ultimately take over, to implement Sharia law, basically across the world. They have a plan to do that. The Muslim Brotherhood, who is now in power in Egypt, whom the FBI has said basically is a terrorist organization, that they sponsor terrorism within the U.S. and across the world. Okay, we're dealing with those guys as if they're they're reasonable people. They have a plan to take over the government. They plan to do that by using by infiltrating and basically becoming the power. And we're helping them do that. Our Homeland Security operation, which you would think is, hey man, that's where it's all about. That's what it takes to protect us. Recent announcement by the Secretary of Homeland Security, we have appointed two, and this is the actual term that was used in the press release, two devout Muslims have been appointed to high-level positions within Homeland Security. Now,
Don, we got to take a break. Don, we got to take a break here for a second, and I want to get right back into this when we come back. And also, when we return, I would like to talk about what we can do about it. Stay tuned as we come back with more Liberty Town Hall. And welcome back to Liberty Town Hall. We're joined today with a Skype call with Don Gould, and we're talking about 9/11 to Global Jihad, a book that Don's put together as he's went around and studied the Islamic and Muslims all over the world, right, Don? Is that, I mean, you've been all over the world on this, right? And we were talking about what the Secretary, before the break, we were talking about what the Secretary of State was talking about this and what the President, about a different type of negotiations. Is that where we were?
Yeah, that's correct. The Muslim Brotherhood have been defined by the FBI as a organization that sponsors terrorism in the U.S. and around the world. That announcement, actually, Director Mueller told Congress exactly that in 2011. We helped the Muslim Brotherhood come to power in Egypt. President Morsi of Egypt is a leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. He has said publicly, the Jews are the descendants of apes and pigs, and we will wipe them off the face of the earth.
Wait a minute, when you say, Don, when you say we helped them come to power in Egypt, what do you mean by that? Who helped them?
President Obama went to Cairo. He made a speech basically saying, you know, we're friends, we want freedom, we want democracy for you guys. He publicly announced on numerous occasions that the president of Egypt must go. He must go. He must release power. He must allow the democratic vote to bring to power what the people want.
Isn't that good? Democracy rule then, right?
Okay, let me, yes, sir, it is. But what you have to understand is these guys consider democracy in a different way. It's a different context.
What do you mean? It's a different democracy? I don't understand. How can it possibly be different? The word change here?
It's different because democracy and human rights within Islam are defined totally differently. They're defined under the premise that Sharia law is God's law and Sharia law applies. Under Sharia law, a woman is a second-class citizen. A non-Muslim is a second-class citizen. If you're non-Muslim or if you're a Muslim woman or a woman in general, you do not have the same rights as a Muslim man.
So therefore, the whole concept of democracy can't be what we're used to because it's different rights for different people then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I see. So if there's a global jihad going on and Americans here at home are at risk of this, what do we do? Really, what do we do as just average citizens out here? How can we address this issue?
What we need to do is ensure that the people that we elect to public office, particularly at the federal level, are people who are not going to bow down, acquiesce to radical Islam. Radical Islam sees any apology, any bowing down as weakness. They respect one thing, Glenn, and that's strength. They respect strength. If you show strength and you have the power, the military power to back that up, they respect you. If you do not, if you start apologizing to them and so forth, they see it as weakness and they use that to capitalize. That just fires them up. We saw the riots all across the Middle East and across the world recently on the basis of these videos.
Mm-hmm. The Arab Spring, an Arab Spring type, yes?
Exactly. Now, let me give you an example of how we see things differently, okay? People across our country and across the world, in reality, blaspheme and trash Jesus Christ on a daily basis.
Yes, they
What
do.
do we do about that? We simply say, God forgive them, for they know not what they do. And we basically take the position that God will judge them.
Yes.
What they do, that's between them and God. That's not up to us to judge.
Right. That's what we're taught here. At least that's
Exactly.
what I was taught. Judge each person individually, not necessarily on a group type judgment. Yet you're saying this is a fundamental issue with all Muslims. So
yeah, exactly. Well, one of the demonstrations recently in the U.S., there was a 4-year-old child holding a sign that said, "Behead anyone who defames the prophet."
at 4 years old.
At 4 years old.
So this is like an indoctrination right from the beginning when they're being raised, right?
Oh, the madrasa schools teach them that.
So the only thing we can do is focus on who we send to Washington to represent us. That's the only thing we can really do at this point, right?
Well, we can do that, and we can also, what we need to do is we need to study, we need to look at, we need to understand what we're dealing with here. We don't understand. I'm going to use an analogy here. What Morrissey said about the Jews, he said, we will wipe them off the face of the earth, okay? All right, the Muslim Brotherhood came to power in Egypt through a democratic vote. I want to take you back to Germany in the 30s, Glenn. Democratic vote in Germany brought Adolf Hitler to power.
Most certainly did.
Hitler said, "We'll wipe the Jews off the face of the earth." What's the difference?
You got me on that one, because it was an election of the people that brought Hitler to power, and all the signs was there for the people to know what Hitler would do. And Don, we're running out of time on today's show. How would somebody get a hold of you and get a copy of your book so that they can understand fully what you're saying in context as it's spelled out?
Go to my website, Glenn. The book is available in paperback format through a distributor called Atlas Books. But if you go to my website, it'll take you there. It's also available through Amazon, through Kobo, through Kindle, and so forth. As an ebook. So you go to my website, www.dongould.us, and you simply, there's buttons on there that will take you to Atlas or take you to Amazon or whatever, and you got it.
Well, Don, I want to thank you very much for joining us here today. I'm certain that there's people out here that would like to know more. I'm sure you're going to get some books in people's hands out there. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to actually research and understand what the real problems are. May God bless you, sir. Keep up the good fight.
God bless you, man. And God bless America.
And may God bless America is right. And we'll be right back with more Liberty Town Hall after these messages.
Glenn, that was a powerful interview today, and I really appreciated you talking to Don Gould. And I hope that you'll get a copy of his book too. Check out Don Gould at your local bookstore, haberdashery, everywhere, and try to make a difference. Notice I said local, because we need to try to keep the money local as we can, try to make an effort to keep our local families employed. But what a powerful discussion that was.
It's the same thing with Benghazi.
Yeah.
They are attacking our way of life, be it by terrorism or by simple arrogancy of attacking U.S. soil and killing our diplomats and ambassadors. Think of how many attacks have happened in the last 3 or 4 months now. They're ramping it up. I mean, this is just like the prelude on the coal to the Marine barracks to 9/11. They didn't go away. This isn't like Vietnam where the Viet Cong just want us out of their country, okay? This is a global caliphate. This is a movement that says, fight me here or fight me there, but we're going after you. We're going to destroy your way of life. It's not personal. It's not to us. You know, it's not like, I don't like Greg. No, Greg's a Christian or Greg's a Jew. He's my enemy. You're just lumped in. They have no respect for the value of life. It's like, think about it, if they can kill their wife or children for honor killings, that's how little they value life. And they're in a global war that has lasted 3,000 years. This is just because we choose to make it go away doesn't mean they plan on making it go away, Greg.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I mean, you've got to keep in mind, too, that there is a movement afoot. Really, there's two. There's movements afoot in this world to try to end nations, consolidate, create a planetary government. Our own United States is talking about giving the UN sovereignty over what's going on with the Small Arms Treaty. Others are going to be talked about. We need to keep our eyes open for this kind of stuff. But yet at the same time, there's a global jihad movement trying to do a planetary government through ownership of the world through religion. And those two battles will eventually converge into something really ugly as well. Powerful.
I wish we had more time to really go into this because
I wish we did too, but we're just out of time. We appreciate you being here today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Liberty Town Hall.
I pray to heaven to bestow the best of blessing on this house, and on all that shall hereafter inhabit it. May none but honest and wise men ever rule under this roof. Letter to Abigail Adams from John Adams, November 2nd, 1800.